Hello and a warm welcome to the programme. I'm Teniola Shuboele. We begin with UK-Nigeria relations as the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Ling, has been reacting to the opposition trailing the UK government's decision to place Nigeria and some other African countries on its travel red list, a move which has been described as knee-jerk and discriminatory. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television's Kaide Okikiolu, she acknowledges the anger coming from the Nigerian government, but believes this is not an issue for reciprocity, saying her government made the decision based on science.
Placing Nigeria on the red list, really, for a lot of people, was a red flag. And for them, it was some sort of confirmation of the bias and discrimination they always thought was targeted at them. And they look at that list, they see only African countries. And then they look at the figures and see that most of the countries that are seeing a rise in the, Omicron cases are European countries. And they wonder, why not put the European countries on the red list as well? And I wonder for you, do you share those concerns as well?
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a good opportunity to address the people of Nigeria. And I first want to start by saying I completely understand the frustration and the anger. I recognise that particularly at this time of year, with Christmas, which is a very important time for many Nigerians, this particularly disrupts travel plans, people's long-awaited trips to see loved ones and so on. So that reaction is, for me, completely understandable, and I recognise it, and I feel it myself. My own travel plans have been disrupted. I was due to be flying back next week for a pre-Christmas get together with my family because I'm covering here in Nigeria for Christmas, but that's all been put on hold now. So it has actual direct impact on individuals. So that's why the reaction is very emotional, very understandable. So I want to just put that on record that I understand it. But in terms of why Nigeria was added to our red list, I want to really stress the importance we attach to an objective, evidence-based health assessment. The way this is done is that countries are reviewed by our health team, so our health security agency, who actually work very closely with your NCDC. And particularly what they look at, and in the case of Nigeria, these two factors were what made the decision to add Nigeria to the red list. So the first is, as of the 4th of December, when the decision was taken, there were 21 cases of Omicron arising from travellers coming from Nigeria to the UK. 19 of those were direct travel links. So in other words, people who got on a direct flight, obviously either from Abuja or Lagos, and 2 were Nigeria was part of their travel itinerary. That was the second highest after South Africa. So that's the first factor. The second factor is because we have such a strong relationship, the volume of travel from Nigeria to the UK is very high, much higher than many other African countries or Middle East countries. You're one of our biggest markets, and for BA, this is one of their most profitable routes. That's because the volume of traffic is extremely high. So that was the health assessment that determined why Nigeria specifically was added to the red list. There are other factors taken into account, but in terms of this decision, those were the 2 most relevant factors.
So I wonder now, listening to people say that this is some sort of discrimination, and they look at the figures for the European countries as well, which, I mean, you see that cases are increasing in Europe as well, and I wonder, when will that be done to European countries such that they look at that red list and they don't just see African countries?
So no, I completely understand that, and you're right that we are reaching a point where we've moved from cases being imported to what we call community transmission. So in other words, people who haven't travelled at all are now starting to contract Omicron, and that is happening in the UK, and it's happening in many European countries, but that's almost like stage 2. So stage 1 for us, and the reason we did it was at that point we felt we could take preventative measures, very quick preventative measures to protect the border, to try and prevent us getting to that point of community transmission. And secondly, and crucially, because this is a new variant, and our health security agency has described it as a variant of significant concern, as indeed WHO has, and very high risk, we needed to buy some time to assess three things. Number one is how transmissible is this new variant, and evidence from South Africa suggests it is much more transmissible than either Alpha or Delta. Secondly, how viable are the vaccines? Will they still protect us in the way they have against Delta and Alpha? And then thirdly, what's the impact of this variant? How ill will people get as a result of contracting it? So those are the three issues we're now working intensively on, including with Nigerian scientists, South African scientists. So it's essentially to buy a piece of time. So I'm not disputing that Omicron is now in European countries, in many countries, because we're at the stage now of community transmission. But we needed this period of time, and particularly because Nigeria is such a huge market, volume of travellers, to try and prevent imports of new cases whilst we do this assessment.
So earlier on, you referenced the WHO, which is an organ of the UN. So we've had the UN, the head of the UN speak about this. You had the WHO as well. You've had the Nigerian government speak about this, the National Assembly, the Nigeria Governors Forum, the Nigerian Association of Nigerian Students, I should say. And I mean, the common thread is that they are all against it, vehemently against it, I should say. In fact, the UN Secretary General used the term travel apartheid. So there's a lot of that you're receiving right now, the UK government as well. How are you internalizing all of that?
Well, because of that strength of reaction, I wanted to reassure myself that the evidence on which this is based was valid and evidence-based and based on the health assessment. So, as I said at the beginning, I completely understand and acknowledge the frustration, the anger, because it has a very, very direct impact on many, many Nigerians' lives. Because of the links between our two countries, the impact in Nigeria is significantly more than it would be in many other countries, particularly at this time of year with travel plans for Christmas and also for students, and we'll come on, I'm sure, to students. So I have looked at this closely. I'm not a scientist, but I wanted to be confident before doing this interview that I felt I could understand and explain it. So as well as explaining, as I did before, about Nigeria being the second highest number of cases coming from Nigeria and because of the volume of traffic, on the point about is this discriminatory, which is, is a fair challenge, I think I can say confidently it's not. When the UK was the epicenter of the Alpha variant, we took some very tough measures ourselves to essentially cut ourselves off, and we banned all but essential travel from the UK. So now that was a very, very tough decision for us. UK has been red listed itself, in earlier stages of this variant. I think when Delta took off, we were red listed by, for example, Austria and by France and I think Turkey. So we've been red listed ourselves by other countries. We haven't just red listed in the past African countries. So Pakistan was red listed, Turkey was red listed by the UK when we had our previous red list. So I hope that gives you some reassurance that it is based on an individual deep dive and assessment of an individual country. It is based on evidence. We were under no illusions of how significant this decision would be, and that there will be cost to this decision, both to individuals, to the economy, and to potentially the handling of the relationship. So it is not taken lightly. It has, we look at all of that, but ultimately, there's only one thing that matters in making a decision like this. This is about people's health and preventative measures to ensure that we have the time to assess the impact of this new variant, which we're all learning about.
So does that mean you're taking all of these, reactions? Are you taking all of them on board?
No, I'm listening very carefully to these reactions. I'm reporting these reactions back to my government. Nigerian voices are loud, they're very clear, they're very articulate, and they're very uniform. Of course we're noticing that reaction. We're under no illusions, and I'm not surprised by these reactions, because I understand how very personally people feel them. And I do understand that sense of grievance and frustration, but that's why I really want to reassure people that the only basis for this decision, this difficult decision, which does have impact, is a health assessment. It is done by our health professionals, who would then advise our ministers. There can be no decision taken arbitrarily. These are scientists, and scientists are data-driven.
So will it then be fair to you if the Nigerian government or other African countries on the red list were to restrict travel from the United Kingdom, seeing that the Omicron, I mean, the cases of the Omicron variant are, there are hundreds now in the UK. So for, reciprocity and diplomacy, will that be fair to you if those countries were to stop travel from the UK?
I don't see this as an issue of reciprocity. I hope that Nigeria will continue, as it does now, to adopt a very evidence-based, health priority-driven approach. You have one of the best disease control centres, certainly in Africa, if indeed the world. Some of the most prominent medical epidemiologists are from Nigeria. So I'm absolutely confident that Nigeria will continue to adopt an evidence-based approach. When the variant was first discovered, obviously I was here, Nigeria was very fast to tighten up its border control, quicker than the UK, frankly, and to introduce all the kind of the other measures. And that's, I think, because you've got a lot of experience in dealing with Ebola, for example. So, and I reported all of that back to the UK. So I am confident, and I hope that this won't be a sort of knee-jerk reciprocity. I hope that it will continue. The decision Nigeria makes, and it'll be for Nigeria to make that decision, will be based on the science.
That's ironic because, people are calling the decision by the UK government knee-jerk. That's what they have called this. So, you hope that the Nigerian government will not do the same.
No, I'm saying that what I hope is that they will adopt the same approach as us. They may not reach the same decision as us, but that it will be based on science. And I want to stress again, the analysis that's done, that is presented, is done by the scientists, by the health epidemiologists. There's a very clear kind of sort of Chinese wall between the health assessment, and then obviously ministers must ultimately take decisions because ministers are accountable. But they've taken the advice that was given to them by the scientists. This is a variant of significant concern. It's very high risk. We don't understand it enough yet. We need to buy ourselves some time, protect the borders, because at that stage, and I want to stress this, the community transmission had not set in. We are now at a different stage, and this will evolve and continue to evolve, which is, of course, why it's kept under constant review.
To other stories now, Burkina Faso's President Roch Marc Kabore has, in a decree, dismissed Prime Minister Christophe Debiere and dissolved the government. The move comes amid an escalating security crisis that has killed thousands and led to street protests calling for the president to resign. There is no indication yet of when a future head of government will be appointed. The West African country of 20.5 million people has been plagued since 2015 by recurrent jihadist attacks that have left 1 million people internally displaced.
On Saturday, during a demonstration against the government's failure to stop.
Over in Cameroon, at least a dozen people have been killed and scores injured in the second day of intercommunal clashes in Busiri in the far northern region of the country. The clashes were between Arab cows herders and Mosgum farmers. 6 villages were reportedly burnt on Wednesday alone. The new round of clashes began on Sunday after a land dispute between the two communities over scarcity of water, which has been worsened by climate change. To the conflict in Ethiopia, the World Food Programme has suspended food aid distribution in Dessie and Kombolcha towns after its warehouses were looted by rebel Tigray forces. The UN says WFP staff were unable to prevent the stealing after facing extreme intimidation, including being held at gunpoint during the theft. It says that large quantities of food supplies, including nutritional items for malnourished children, were looted in Kombolcha in recent days. A UN spokesman also accuses military personnel of seizing 3 WFP humanitarian lorries and using them for their own purposes. Human rights activist Olatunji Larry Barua has been following the situation in Ethiopia. He joins us now for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's quite sad, really. Since the beginning of the conflict a year ago, 28 humanitarian workers have been killed. This latest development is yet another example of just how dangerous this country is for aid workers, isn't it?
Naturally, in every state of conflict, you always have to navigate the thin line between safety for aid workers and civilians, and which has been evident in Ethiopia. So it's really been a very dangerous place for aid workers for a lot for a few months now. Even the most recent news is that about 72 drivers of the World Food Program were arrested by the Ethiopian government, which is unfortunate. And it also, what it does to the crisis, it will exacerbate, it will also aggravate the humanitarian situation in the country. And we are going to have to keep dealing with this, thin line between security, between humanitarian intervention, and also getting need, especially humanitarian need, to people who are in need in these places. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality.
And apart from the security situation, the relationship between aid agencies and the Ethiopian government has been, not on good terms. Humanitarian groups have been pleading for months now for more humanitarian access in the country. Considering the fact that the UN says more than 9 million people are now in critical need of food assistance, are we heading towards a humanitarian catastrophe?
The catastrophe is here on our laps already. We're not heading there. It's happening in real time. And with about 9 million people in severe food need, and you have in northern Ethiopia, where the Tigrayan forces have been well consolidated, there are over 3.5 million people in need in that region. Add that to the warehouse that had just been looted and the suspension of the humanitarian intervention announced by the World Food Program. Even the United Nations yesterday said they are still short of over $800 million or thereabouts to provide intervention for people in Ethiopia. The catastrophe is here already. We've been seeing images of people, of children starving and dying in different parts of Ethiopia. So right now, what we have to do is to what he underscored for me is the need for more multilateral conversation, more multilateral cooperation, especially in dealing with conflict. You have to get everybody on the table. I know that former Nigerian President General Olusegun Obasanjo has been like the African Union hemisphere to Ethiopia, but we need to just do more. We need to get, there's a sense of urgency that we need to bring to the table. I know a lot of actors are on this, but those efforts are not proving to be timely, are not proving to be effective, and are not proving to be what we need to end this crisis.
So you don't feel the international community is doing enough? We also have to look at regional bodies as well. What is their role in this crisis?
No, well, first thing first, we need to acknowledge what the international body, the United Nations, the World Food Program, the international NGOs, their roles and what they could do. But you have to understand that this is an Ethiopian crisis. It is an East African crisis. It is an African crisis. And what we need to have on the table is more countries on the continent, more countries with leverage with Ethiopia. I'm talking about a country like Kenya, a country like Uganda, coming to the table and prevailing on the Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian government has been deliberately intransigent, deliberately uncooperative, and you have to understand that they need to preserve the sovereignty of the nation. The Tigrayans are also, revolting and are not willing to step down right now. And you have to look for how do we reach out to these people? How do we reach out to everybody? It's not about the ambitions of the government or the forces, the revolting forces. It's about the people. Governance is about the people everywhere, and even here, in Nigeria, on the continent, and across the world. If it's no longer about the people, then that's where the problem is, and that's why we need to have everybody. It's an African crisis. It's also an East African crisis and an Ethiopian crisis. But Ethiopia has proven not to have the capacity to solve the problem because they are the one at the heart of the conflict. What is the East African community doing about it? What is the African Union doing about it? Are we doing enough to end this crisis? It will remain to be seen over the next couple of months. But right now, as it stands, I don't see light at the end of the tunnel. We are still going to have to struggle with this for some time to come.
All right, then, really dark predictions there. Human rights activist Olatunji Larry Bariwa, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Always a pleasure.
Over in South Sudan, according to a new report by Amnesty International, fighting between government-allied groups and the opposition has led to unimaginable violence in recent months that could potentially amount to war crimes. The report says dozens of civilians were killed and tens of thousands others displaced in the fighting in West Equatoria State between June and October this year. It reveals harrowing atrocities committed against civilians in Tambura region. Survivors interviewed by the organization gave distressing accounts of escaping gunfire lasting for hours and of entire neighborhoods being set alight. The report is the first detailed human rights analysis of the conflict. Meanwhile, ahead of his briefing to the UN Security Council next week, the special representative of the Secretary General in South Sudan and the head of the United Nations mission in South Sudan is urging political leaders to make a fresh push to fully implement the peace agreement in the country so that free, fair and peaceful elections can be held. Nicholas Haysom says the young nation's fragile peace process is under serious threat due to slow progress.
There cannot be a business-as-usual approach. The parties must inject fresh urgency into the process and demonstrate a sustained, collective political will to finalise critical areas of the agreement. This includes the transitional security arrangements, legislation promoting financial and judicial reforms, and constitution making so that elections can be held. Will there come a time in which people say, the peace agreement has lost credibility? We're not saying that. We've been saying consistently to people, please believe in the peace agreement, please work at it.
And finally on the program, Dr. Gladys Kalima-Zikusoka of Uganda has been granted the Champion of the Earth Award for 2021 in the Science and Innovation category by the United Nations Environment Programme. The champions were chosen for their transformative impact on the environment and their leadership in advancing bold and decisive action on behalf of people and the planet. Since its inception in 2005, the annual Champions of the Earth Award, the UN's highest environmental honor, has been awarded to some of the world's most dynamic environmental leaders.
I'm Dr. Gladys Kalima-Zikusoka, founder and CEO of Conservation Through Public Health. I'm a wildlife veterinarian and conservationist. I've been working with gorillas for 25 years. By hiring me as the first vet for the Uganda Wildlife Authority, I became the first full-time wildlife vet in Uganda, and that started making people realize that animal welfare is important in conservation. The One Health approach addresses the health of humans, animals, and the environment together. So we find that we need to improve community well-being. And one way that we do it is by improving their health, which in turn also protects the gorillas. We're building a brand community of coffee drinkers at our Gorilla Conservation Cafe. We only buy coffee from farmers bordering the park. So at the Gorilla Conservation Cafe, people know that when they come and buy coffee there or drink coffee there, they're helping to save gorillas.
Well done and congratulations to her. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyola Shibowale. Bye for now.